Hello and welcome to Five Love Languages. This is Pastor Wes Brockway, pastor of Campbellsburg Baptist Church, and I'm happy you tuned in. Hope to be able to share something with you about developing better communication with those you love. We are talking about quality time, but before I get started doing that, I want to invite you, to join us on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. for Bible study, and then 11 a.m. for morning worship. We have a great time of worship, singing songs of the faith, some contemporary songs, just learning about God and fellowshipping together and worshiping Him. So we invite you to be a part of that. Then on Tuesdays, we have two Bible studies doing the same book. We're doing Esther, It's Tough Being a Woman by Beth Moore. And we have a session at 9:30 in the morning and another one at 5 p.m. And you're welcome to either or both of those if you'd like. We're 2 or 3 weeks into the session, but you'll be able to catch up, and you're sure welcome to come and take a part of that. So we hope you'll consider that and come join us. You can watch us live stream at 11 o'clock, our morning worship service, and then other times throughout the week. So trying to get the Word of God out there to you in convenient ways, but we like meeting together, and we like getting to know you. So I hope you'll come see us sometime if you're not already attending. We are studying the book, The Five Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman, and I need to start today apologizing to you, for I left you hanging, and it's been 2 weeks since we recorded our last session. The truth is, I overextended myself on tasks and projects, and that led to becoming very fatigued and having to rest up. One of my favorite movies is Top Gun, the original one and the new one. But in the first one, when they got called into the commander's office, he told Maverick, "Son, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash." And I feel like that sometimes. You know, my mind thinks my body is still 25 years old and I can do all the things I used to do, but my body tells me, no, I'm not. And the next morning it tells me very clearly about how tired it is. So I had to rest up a little bit, but now we're into session 4. Going to talk about quality time, but before we go there, I wanted to touch bases and give another thought about our previous love language, words of affirmation. I want to revisit that first love language we covered. In that session, we spoke of the need that all of us have, but some very specifically, of needing positive, sincere, specific, encouraging words. We all need encouragement, but there are those among us for whom this is how they feel love from others, and so it's especially important. We can do all sorts of things for that person. We can try to show them love in all kinds of ways, but if we're not speaking their love language, words of affirmation, they are frustrated, and so are we, because our attempts are not finding fertile ground. So they still feel unloved, and we're still frustrated because we're trying to show them love, but it just doesn't work. So we learned about words of affirmation, and what I want to add to our last session is that sometimes a word of affirmation is no word at all. Yes, sometimes silence is what's needed. Many, if not most of you, will remember having heard the adage, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. It's good advice. Unfortunately, it seems in these days and times to be more and more ignored. Somehow we've gotten the idea that the world needs us to express our opinion and view of things. But friends, we're mistaken. There's another adage that applies here, and I'm going to clean it up to a G rating. Opinions are like armpits. Everyone has them, and they all stink. Usually our view on matters is simply our take on things, and very often it is an uneducated, unexperienced view of things. We do well to keep it to ourselves. Giving our opinion and telling another what they should do is usually a well-meaning attempt to help. Sometimes it's just a put down, but Well, sometimes we think we're giving them sage advice and we dish it out even if it's hurtful. And usually we're wrong, and we're wrong to do that. We're wrong. One of the very basic reasons is because we don't fully know the situation. And so it's difficult to give a good word of advice when we don't know the whole story. So it's best that we just keep that to ourselves and be encouraging through words of affirmation. Listen and support them in that way. Makes me think of a verse, Proverbs 25:11. The Message writes it like this: the right word at the right time is like a custom-made piece of jewelry. The King James says, a word aptly spoken is like silver apples in a gold dish. In other words, very valuable and prized. So let's strive to speak the right word at the right time. Now moving on to this week's love language, quality time. In Dr. Chapman's chapter, that's hard to say, I need to say it 3 times fast, don't I? In Dr. Chapman's chapter on words of affirmation, he ended with a case study of Bill and Betty. Bill and Betty's marriage was suffering. They were drifting apart, and both of them were feeling unloved. Dr. Chapman counseled them to first think about the positive attributes of the other person, and then to write those attributes down and to share words of affirmation reflecting appreciation for those attributes that person held, to tell them how much they were admired and loved, and because of who they were, not because of what they'd done, but just because of them. So the couple did follow his directions, and a couple of months later, Dr. Chapman had the opportunity to check back with Bill and Betty to review how their relationship was going. Bill felt renewed and energized. His wife's words of affirmation were just what he needed for his love tank to be kept full. He felt more connected to her than he had in many years. But when Dr. Chapman talked to Betty, he got a different story. She reported that she still felt unloved despite Bill's words of affirmation to her. She appreciated his kind words, but her love tank stayed empty because it wasn't what she was looking for. She told Dr. Chapman, "Yes, I enjoy his words of affirmation, but nothing has changed. Bill still spends too much time at work, and he spends too much time on his work. He's never home, and when he is home, he isn't really home." Dr. Chapman was initially confused and frustrated. He thought the words of affirmation were what both Bill and Betty needed, but obviously he was wrong. He pondered on what Betty expressed to him, and he replayed his words over and over in his mind, trying to figure out what he had missed. Then it came to him. Betty, like everyone, appreciated being encouraged, but her love language was quality time, not words of affirmation. Despite Bill telling her what he appreciated about her, she still felt abandoned and alone. She wanted quality time with her husband, Bill. Well, Dr. Chapman virtually slapped himself in the forehead and remarked to himself how stupid he had been to think that both Bill and Betty needed the same display of love in the same way. He had missed what Betty had told him earlier. She'd said it all along, he just hadn't heard it. He set out to help Betty by helping Bill see what Betty needed. He shared with Bill that Betty needed his time, and that time needed to be quality time, not just being in the same room. Dr. Chapman explained what he meant by that. Too often we think just being in the same room is spending time with someone, even though, if we'll admit it, we're busy playing on our phone, reading the paper, watching TV, or any other myriad of activities. Quality time, Dr. Chapman instructed, is doing nothing but listening to the other intently and doing nothing else but spending time with them. He asked Bill what kind of things they did when they were dating. Bill recounted that often they would go out to eat and spend hours just talking about their day, learning about each other. But maybe sometimes they went to a movie and they selected it together, or maybe he watched what she wanted. He wanted to be with her, and they sat holding hands, and later they would talk about the movie. Well, Bill could see where Dr. Chapman was going. When he was dating Betty, she had his undivided attention. He was getting to know her, and he wanted to know all about her. He wanted to hear and learn what she had to share. For those moments when they were dating, she was the center of his attention. But Bill explained, I'm so very busy at work, and it's not just for me, it's for Betty and the kids, to provide them a great home and all the stuff that they want. I do it for them. I don't know where I'm going to find the time. That's when Dr. Chapman asked Bill, Bill, you're striving to become the CEO, the top man of this company. Tell me, when you get to the top, do you want Betty to be there with you, or do you want to be there alone? Well, I want her there, Bill insisted. Then Dr. Chapman said, you need to include her now. Bill was willing, and so working with Dr. Chapman, he listed things that Betty had been remarking she'd like to do. One of the things was going to hear a symphony. Now, Bill was a country western gospel kind of guy. He wasn't really into the symphony, but he loved his wife, and he knew that she wanted to do that. So he thought he'd go to the symphony, and they started going on occasion, and he got to where he liked it, but he mostly liked doing things with her and seeing her happy. That symphony wasn't Bill's cup of tea, but it was Betty's. So Bill began adjusting his schedule to spend time with Betty doing things she liked to do, and the change in Betty was phenomenal. The story I've just recounted concerns a married couple and their relationship, but it's just as applicable to our children and our grandchildren. A child wants time with their mom and dad. They enjoy time with grandmom and grandpop, or Gigi and granddad, as my kids say. They like getting toys and video games, but playing with them becomes empty and unsatisfying. So we typically counter it by buying them more toys. Keeps them busy for a while, but their love tank stays empty. Their love tank will get filled by dad sitting on the floor, rolling a ball back and forth if it's a young child. Perhaps an older daughter might enjoy dad taking her out to eat, one-on-one, hearing what she has to say about her friends in school and anything that's on her mind. Listening, not correcting. She might enjoy her mother taking her shopping. The activity is not really the most important factor. It's doing something one-on-one together. Grandparents, do you wish you had a better relationship with your grandchildren? You give them gifts. You go to see them, but it doesn't seem to be gaining any ground or being appreciated, really. Perhaps what you need to do is spend quality time with them. My kids really recount how much they loved my mother when they went to see her. Yes, she was in Florida. She lived on the beach. That had a lot to do with it. But my mom liked to go for walks on the beach. And my kids can both tell you how much they enjoyed walking along the beach under the moonlight, just quiet and chatting with her about different things. Mom really loved to listen, but she would challenge and bring up ideas for them to think about. And that time is special to them to this day. So maybe you need to spend quality time doing something with them that they like. And that may mean letting them teach you how to play the latest video game. Oh boy, doesn't that sound like fun? Or even worse, maybe they'll want you to listen to their music. Oh my, Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby, it is not. But you'll need to smile and grin and ask them, what is it you like about this music? Get them talking about it. But you'll find when you sacrifice your time and preferences for them, that they'll begin to open up to you more and more, and they'll want to spend time with you. What you will do depends on how badly you want a good relationship with your grandchildren, your children, or any other person. It could be your spouse, a child, or a grandchild. To paraphrase Dr. Chapman's statement to Bill, you're going to be older one day. It's coming for all of us. Do you want to be alone when you're older? Or do you want to be visited by your grown children and grandchildren and hear about their day and what's going on with them? Do you want to enjoy rocking on the front porch with your spouse or putting around in a dusty old garage all alone? I thought so. That being the case, the time to change is now, not 30 years from now. Dr. Chapman remarks that just as words of affirmation have different dialects, so too the love language of quality time has different dialects. One of those is togetherness. Proximity is being located near each other. Togetherness is focused attention on the other person. Quality conversation. This is a sympathetic dialogue where one listens to the other experiences and feelings without interrupting, correcting them, or analyzing what they're saying. Men, I think mostly, but some women too, feel the need to analyze what the other is saying and then offer ways to fix the situation. There's a time for fixing, and the other person may eventually ask you for advice. But until they do, your job is to listen sympathetically to what they have to say without correction or judgment. A third dialect of quality time is learning to talk. Learning to talk, we all talk every day. I can talk. I just don't want to talk. Well, that's not quite what we're talking about here. Learning to talk with another person doesn't mean giving information, but rather how something has made you feel or its impact upon you, how it changed how you think or made you do something different perhaps. The first way is information, just spilling out facts about something that happened during the day. The other is self-revelation. Well, we'll reveal ourselves to another person. That way they can really get to know us, to know how we think, what impresses us, what distresses us, what pleases us. We must trust the other person because self-revelation can be difficult. Sadly, as adults, too often we've learned to kind of shut down, and that's why we don't share, because someone either made fun of us, criticized us, thought it was their business to correct us, and so we just quit sharing those things. That's unfortunate. We are social creatures, and so we have to be able to trust someone to be able to keep what we say between us and them and not make it gossip fodder, not make it the butt of jokes. We must feel safe exposing our inner selves to the other person. That safety comes from dialogue, and it comes a step at a time. However, when we learn to express ourselves to each other, we will grow deeper in intimacy of souls, but probably intimacy in our bodies if it's what our spouse we're communicating with. Finally, the last quality time love dialect is quality activities. A quality activity doesn't have to be an expensive activity. It may be a walk in the park, chatting, or a walk around the block, seeing how the other neighbors are landscaping their yard. Maybe a dinner at a nice restaurant, or it may be an ice cream cone at a fast food restaurant. Wendy's, Fosty's is my favorite. The way to know what is a quality activity is to understand where the focus lies. Is the focus on the event, say a football game, or the person? Or by playing foosball together rather than watching football? Time is our greatest commodity and our most expensive commodity. We can make more money, but we cannot make more time. The man who orchestrated Chrysler's comeback in the 1980s was Lee Iacocca. Lee Iacocca had many good quotes, but one that applies to our discussion is this: no man ever got to the end of his life and said, I wish I'd spent more time in the office. Let that sink in. At the end of our time on earth, most of us start gaining some wisdom, a little, too little and too late. And we understand that our health is important and our relationships. These are what holds the greatest values, not being the CEO. Words of affirmation and quality time. These are two very important love languages, and there are three more. Next session, we will discuss receiving gifts. Ooh, I like that one. Who doesn't like receiving gifts? So I'll see you next session, but before I go, let me offer one last observation about quality time. Sometimes proximity, just being in the room, is enough. Sitting in the same room while she crochets or he builds a model car can be fulfilling and satisfying. But that is the case because true quality time has been spent together regularly. And so those times of just quietly being in each other's presence is precious. But remember the quality time. This is Pastor Brockway, pastor of Campbellsburg Baptist Church, and I hope this look at mainly quality time, but another look at words of affirmation has helped you. And I hope that it will help you in your relationships to grow deeper, more binding relationships that are more rewarding for you and the other person. So until next week, this is Pastor Brockway saying God